Thank you, Gabby. I'd like to introduce my partner, Gabriela González Pacheco. Yo soy Andrea Ferrari, founder at Whole Schools International, and we've been working with Leaders Forum ever since the onset of pandemic. I'd like to welcome all of you returning leaders, friends, and colleagues. It's lovely to see familiar faces and all those newcomers as well that enrich our forum year after year or semester by semester. We used to hold the forum twice or bi-weekly when the pandemic just began in order to see us through those tough times, come together to share different visions of how to face the challenges of the short and then the long term and those that are here to stay. And together, of course, everyone achieved more by sharing our international perspectives and more than anything, supporting each other, creating a very strong sense of community, which is what has made us continue and be united throughout these challenging times. Leaders Forum is a great opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better and get to know more about your educational institutions and of course about your own leadership and how you are able to ground different strategies and different visions in order to help out the transformation that we're currently living in education. For us at Whole Schools is all about creating awareness. A lot of you have participated in our live Ed Talks series on a weekly basis, which helps also to co-construct this new landscape in education. We welcome all of you to join us in that effort, and we certainly appreciate getting together on a Saturday morning. Makes it extra special. We want to salute and greet all our friends that are entering their Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, that are in their different celebrations that will begin tomorrow, observed until Tuesday, sending our best regards and our best wishes to them, to all of them. Know that they're in our thoughts and prayers for the new year coming. And also today, from our six leaders that we're introducing to you, one of our leaders won't be joining. They have been struck by Hurricane Fiona in Puerto Rico. So they have sent their apologies and make sure that we would announce at the beginning of the session. Dear Dr. Jose Rivera, our leader from Cognia, he will not be joining us today, but he is, of course, in our thoughts. So wishing him the best, speedy recovery. And we still have our five other leaders. Thank you for being present, and so happy that you could join from Morelia, from Ecuador, from all the way from Colombia and Chile, and all the way from Denver, of course. Thank you, Gabby. This is helpful. Here we are. So a little bit about the setting and the logistics of the session. Gabriela, if you'd like to say a few words about that, and then we'd go straight into our main session with everyone.
Of course. Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. And we're very happy that you're all able to join. We know that a Saturday, which is a day to rest as educators, is something that is very much needed, especially at these times where everyone, I was talking to some heads of school and they were telling me how they felt like it was the end of the year here in Mexico, although it's just beginning. I said, that's never a good sign, right? When you feel like you're just as tired as you ended the year and you were not able to replenish those forces to be able to deal with whatever the situations are ahead. And well, thank you for being here mainly. And many who wrote to us and asked us to please make sure that we had the recording of the session so that they could, if not able to connect today, as is the case of many, well, they're at least able to later on have the recording of the session and just hear all the amazing ideas and experiences from the leaders that are joining us today. As far as logistics, we're going to begin by having the five leaders that are participating today actively in the roundtable, and then afterwards we will have some time to do a Q&A with them and just interchange ideas and share thoughts and experiences. So please write down your thoughts as you listen to their different points of view, so that you can choose which ones you want to address. And depending on how many we are, we will either decide to um, do it into breakout rooms or just one main session with Q&As. Okay, so we'll figure that out as we go along. And so we're ready to start.
Yes, look at this. We have a big group. We're 24 out of the 50 that registered. See who else joins in the course, but let's begin without further ado by introducing our first leader. We'd like to begin with Kapono Siari. Kapono, are you there?
I am here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'd like to introduce Kapono as the Executive Director for What School Could Be, bringing a very unique vision to this group. Kapono is currently head of school at the American International School of Egypt, and of course his educational philosophy and his own schooling experience in a progressive, social, and constructivist school during his early years in Honolulu, Hawaii, will also bring interesting perspectives for us today. Kapono is also a co-author of the Landscape Model of Learning. His co-author is here with us today, Ms. Jennifer D. Klein, if you'd like to say hello.
Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces and some new faces, and welcome to everyone. I'm excited to be part of the conversation. And I'll put a link in for the book too, if people are curious.
Thank you, Jennifer. That would be super helpful. So with that, introducing the idea of what is school for, we'd like to welcome you, Kapono.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. This is the second of these that I'm joining. And Andrea, it's wonderful to be part of your organization. Everybody who comes to these tends to be an amazing addition to my life and my day. So it's fine that it's on a Saturday. It gives me a great Saturday. Like Andrea introduced, my name is Kapono Siari. I'm executive director of the educational nonprofit What School Could Be. I'd tell you a couple seconds about that. It was founded by educational supporter and author and producer Ted Dinnersmith, who produced the film Most Likely to Succeed. And Most Likely to Succeed shifted me as an educator. If you haven't seen it, I suggest that's an amazing starting place for a fall of shifting how we look at education. But you know, the premise of that film was the premise of the film is to ask that question, and it starts off with a little bit of history, and then it tracks two kids through their journey at High Tech High in a very forward-thinking, project-based learning environment. Spoiler alert, one of the kids does really well and one of them doesn't. That's not a spoiler. It's part of the unintended part of how that film came together. They didn't plan it when they were filming it that way. I won't tell you anything more about their journey because it is worth watching. But the whole beginning of that film really pointed out that 130 years ago, when school was developed this way in periods in the day and disciplines and grade levels, that was an amazing innovation. It really did help that time period where we were trying to raise minimally qualified but uniformly qualified armies and minimally qualified but uniformly qualified labor forces and factories, specifically the Carnegies and the Fords and the people who were trying to build factories across the United States. That film shifted my perspective a bunch as far as how I wanted to move forward in education, but it certainly wasn't, it didn't shift my perspective more than about 10 or 15 degrees because I was lucky. Jennifer and I both had amazing experiences in our childhood of being able to go to amazing schools. I went to a school that I describe as the happiest place on earth. I did not know that you weren't supposed to like school until I watched the movies, was old enough to watch movies and see kids cutting school in movies. And I didn't quite get that until I left that school in 7th grade and went to a really high pressure college prep school in which I finally did realize school does suck. And it is horrible for most kids. It was certainly not fun for me for the next 6 years. Okay, I'm grateful for the education I got there. I need to say that. Thank you to that school. I did get a good education, but it was not a wonderful 6 years of my life. So when we get together, we're going to ask the question, what is school for? We're going to ask that genuinely. I think Andrea said she let me bend the rules a little bit and show you a little bit of a video that we have as one of our assets and what school could be, just a few minutes to start off that session. But we really want to talk genuinely about what is school for. I'm going to tell you a really quick story, and then I'm going to pass it on to the next panelist. When I was 22, my very best friend from high school, from that school that was not so fun, Springer Furberg, she was 23. She was amazing. Springer was an A+ student. She had a 4.0 at the school that nobody got a 4.0 grade point average at. She literally got a perfect on her SAT scores her junior year of high school, when nobody gets a perfect, like literally a perfect on their SATs. She was invited to go to a top tier university her junior year without graduating high school, and she did go. And when she graduated, she came back and she decided to teach in the public education system in Hawaii, in a rural town, a small rural native Hawaiian, socially disenfranchised town on the north shore of Oahu. And she called me one day because she was having issues with a student. That student wouldn't turn in a permission slip to go on job shadow day. This was a girl. She was of a minority religion. She was Mormon. She was a minority ethnic group. She was Samoan. And she was in a rural town. And like I said, she was a female. And she wanted to be a doctor, and Springer wanted to support her. Springer's parents were both self-made doctors. Her mom put herself through school, put herself through medical school, married a construction worker, put him through school. He became a doctor. So Springer thought, not a better situation than having this girl job shadow Springer's mom. So Springer gave the girl a permission slip, and she just wouldn't turn it in. And Springer was wrestling with, how much do I support this girl? How much do I call her mom? Do I, get her to turn it in? And eventually she did call the mom. And this is what the mom said. She said, Ms. Furberg, I hear you. I understand why this is an amazing opportunity. But for me, my daughter becoming a doctor sounds not like success. It sounds like failure. Going to medical school on the mainland, on the continent, means that she will leave this community. Will mean that she'll be in her internship on our Sabbath day, and religion is important to us. It means that she probably won't marry a Samoan Mormon, because there's not a lot of Samoan Mormon doctors for her to get married to. She'll probably marry somebody not from our community. Her kids will be raised not in this community. Her kids will be separated from our household, which is already 3 generations of our family. They won't learn their language. They won't learn their culture. They won't be grounded in their religion. None of that to me sounds like success. The first, 10 years that I told that story, I was really sad because I had one vision of what school was for, because the girl didn't go on the job shadow. And I had wished for 10 years that Springer and I had figured out how to convince her mom to let her go on the job shadow. But it wasn't until later that I started asking that question, what is school for? Was it more of a loss that she didn't go on the job shadow? Or was it more of a loss that Springer and I didn't give her the tools to navigate that situation? That we weren't able to help her navigate the expectations of 2 different cultural settings? Would that have been a better outcome from that situation, no matter if she went on the job shadow or not? So in our session, when we do the breakout, we're going to actually ask that question. I went to university. I'm glad I went to university. Is school always for university? Is school for happiness? Is school to raise a more civically engaged democratic society? Is school for academic growth? I would say yes to all of those, and that we really do need to critically examine that question. I hope I see a few of you at least in that breakout session.
Thanks, Kapono, for that brilliant introduction. It's a question that's always on our mind, yes, as we progress through our educational trajectory. What are we aiming for? What are we striving for? And certainly, how do we support that? So that'll be a very interesting breakout room to join. Of course, participants will be able to join the rooms of their choice. And here we go. Gabriela, please, with the intro slide so we can introduce our next leader into conversation. We have over here Miss Noemi Valencia Trainer. Noemi her presentation today on driving academic achievement from the heart. Noemi is the co-founder and Chief Learning and Inspiration Officer at Notion and TRED, Global Founder and Chief Learning Officer at the Varman School that we had the distinguished pleasure to visit in Morelia just last month. It's a distinguished Apple school. Ms. Noemi is also the OECD advisor for the 2030 Education Framework, representative of PISA for schools in Mexico. And of course, she's an Apple Distinguished Educator since 2012. For the past 27 years, Noemi has devoted her life to creating innovative and efficient learning environments for K through 9. And today she's here to talk to us about academic achievement from the heart. Thank you, Ms. Noemi. Welcome.
Hi, Andrea. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here today. And I'm just going to start by sharing a little bit of what we do at Notion. We pretty much work for the schools. So we create learning ecosystems that are integrated, that are transdisciplinary, but above all, we support so that we can actually together make sure that we are raising these amazing human beings, the global citizens of the world, those that are going to be facing a future of uncertainty, but that will have all of the tools and all of the competencies in order to face it in a way that so that they're committed, responsible, that they're caring, and they're responsible. So one of the things that we found throughout this journey is that most of us have been taught in school that the heart, it's constantly responding to the orders that are sent from the brain in the form of neural signals. However, it's not very known that the heart actually sends more signals to the brain that the brain sends to the heart. So actually, these heart signals have a significant effect on our brain function, and they influence the emotional processes as well as the higher cognitive faculties like attention, perception, memory, problem solving. So in other words, not only does the heart respond to the brain, but the brain more often and continuously responds to the heart. We partnered many years ago with HeartMath Institute, and in the research through the neuroscience, they have demonstrated that different patterns of heart activity have distinct effects on cognitive and emotional function. So when we are very stressed or have negative emotions, the heart rhythm pattern is erratic and it's disordered. So all of the neural signals traveling from the heart to the brain, they inhibit these higher cognitive functions. So they limit our ability to think clearly, to remember, to learn, to reason, to make wise decisions. So this really explains why many times we act impulsively or unwisely when we're under stress, because the heart's input to the brain during these emotions and these negative emotions, they have a true and very profound effect on our brain's emotional processes, and they serve to reinforce these emotional experience of stress. So if we're talking about raising these amazing human beings and the kids, our whole focus throughout all of these years has been, how can we create environments for learning when from a very, very young age, kids can learn to manage that stress, and because we cannot prevent when they're going to be having bad experiences, but we can prevent or help them, work around them and really transform those into a better moment or a nicer moment. So knowing all these, we built and we created our curriculum, as I mentioned, being transdisciplinary, and it's a challenge-based learning fused with human-centered design model. And what we do is that we provide the students and the schools and the teachers and the whole team, all of the elements in a very intertwined way. And this gives us a lot of benefits. So within our breakout room, what I'm trying to go over transdisciplinarity as a means of creating these engagement and motivation amongst the students. We're going to be talking about immersion. How can we really create these environments for collaboration, innovation, creativity, personal and social agency, digital citizenship? But above all, we're going to talk about how can we connect with our heart? How can we create frameworks and curricula which is aligned to meaningful elements like, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals that along all of these years have created, are able to allow the students to create impact and to make a difference and to become these amazing human beings that are really connected, you know, to themselves, to their identity, to the world surrounding them, and to the environment. And our essential question will be, what kind of kids we're leaving to the world, we're leaving to the planet? Because more often we listen to the question, what world are we leaving behind? What world will the future generations be facing? But really, the essential question is, what kind of people with children we are raising, we're bringing up, and we are leaving behind for these planet, and to be able to find solutions where they don't even exist. And just on one note, we have evidence that we've collected that when you work first from the inside, from the heart, then automatically excellence and academic achievement happens. So thank you very much.
Mimi, that's super. Thank you for reminding us of the essence of educational excellence and your proposal that it begins with the heart, begins with finding that place and grounding it in the children, and best preparing them for our world is what matters most. I know I saw this evidence, real evidence in the campus at Morelia. I know you're doing significant work with HeartMath, and we were able to observe how even the surroundings, nature, the trees participate in creating a very special opportunity for children, the drivers of well-being, to be grounded in our earth. I hope that you're able to touch on that as well. It's such an amazing part of your project. Thank you for enlightening us with all the research that you've been doing on behalf of Notion. That's Mimi Trainer. And now we'd like to welcome our next guest speaker, panel participant. Gabby, if you help me with the screen. Okay, here we have Mr. Andrew Sherman. So happy to have you with us today. Andrew is a long-time colleague and friend who's a specialist in Latin American accreditation, of course, and has led many a school through the process assurance and quality review. He's been a consultant for many, many years. Today, he's involved in a supreme project that turns that idea around in the accreditation world. We're talking about the Kruger schools. Andrew Sherman is the co-founder of K-School Primaria and chief academic officer of K-Schools. Welcome all the way from Quito, Ecuador, Andrew. Great to have you to talk about innovation, disruption, and reimagining our schools.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrea. It's always a pleasure to be here and connect with people. I've been chatting with some new friends, so it's always great to really get out there and network. And as we've heard already, it's nice to spend a Saturday morning with a group of educators thinking about the same thing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about we could call it a process. I don't think it's clean or linear by any means, but a little bit about disruption and innovation, and then how do we reimagine schools, as much as we're trying to do here at Kruger, and heavily influenced by what schools could be, and the work that Capono and the people at Ted Dintersmith's organization and are really thinking about. So I think about it all the time. I just did a presentation to a project-based management congress yesterday about this, and thinking a little bit about disruption as not a tool, not an invention, a specific resource. Rather it's an analysis, right? It's a critical thinking exercise. So I think too many times we think it's driven by technology or driven by a new invention. But the reality is that it's an analysis of a situation and how things are functioning and how we're thinking about things need to change, that something's not working or inefficient, or systems are antiquated, or processes, frameworks, and approaches are not as productive as we want them to be. So I always think about disruption and guiding schools through this process. It's a thinking process about what isn't working and what we want to change. And I think that's the idea, is that there's challenges that the way schools organize right now, right? Physical spaces and operational structures and teaching and learning activities, because of larger ecosystem changes like communication and access to information, the internet and connectivity that we have, this human interconnectivity. Very obvious example is, of course, the global pandemic. Kruger Corporation is actually a technological solutions company that has an incubator and an accelerator aspect to it called Kruger Labs to support startups. And I always tell everyone that I think schools should be. What are schools for? I think schools are an incubator for ideas and accelerator of dreams. And I talk about that a lot as we talk about school startups. And Kruger schools, K-School Primaria and K-School Secundaria, here in Quito, emerged from that environment around three kind of very important foundational learning aspects: life skills with social and emotional learning to foster well-being, confidence and resilience, an entrepreneurial project based experiences and projects in general that work at three different levels, whether it's in the subject matter or the grade level or a community-based project. We're thinking about walking and doing things together in group and collaborative ways. And the last foundational principle was access to expertise and career workplace knowledge through master classes, job shadowing, and internships. So we really bring these experiences together through the idea that we learn by doing. We learn through experiences, and we try to create experiences in the classrooms and in the schools that allow students to apply those experiences to kind of real world situations. Or we heard mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. How do you address those on a local basis? So those are all things that we've been working on and working through. The idea that we want to disrupt what's out there because we see a need for it. And with that, there's the idea of innovation, right? Innovation really is what is designed and utilized or implemented to address the change that you've seen necessitated by disruptive thinking. So innovation comes in that moment where we're disrupting how things are through our critical thinking. And it's the realization that we need to do something different. It could be a tangible invention to address productivity issues, a design of more efficient processes, whatever it may be. The disruption and then the innovation itself, or the innovations, opens up our ability to consider multiple open-ended possibilities or pathways of what organizations could look like, or schools should look like, or classrooms could look like. In Kruger Schools itself, we've designed a platform called EduFlix to organize the operational aspects, like an SMS. I mean, we're very familiar with those, right? Inward and external communications, attendance, other reports. We've also combined it with an LMS, a learning management system, where courses have kind of a wiki space or Wikipedia type element of course content that could be accessed for flipping the classroom, as well as a resource for virtual learners. But we've also added a platform, kind of very much a social media platform with feed for instant news items and events, with additional element that we have called Krugs, which is our cryptocurrency, which students begin to think about and use as they develop community building efforts at the school. So as we think about disruption and innovation, this gives us those multiple possibilities where we have an ability to reimagine or imagine a new situation, a new type of school, a more proficient way to organize the school day, or deliver engaging learning activities, or the creation of products such as online running records or flexible seating for more comfortable learning environments. It also gives us the ability to rework processes, revise assessment policies to include student self-evaluation or alternative ways to demonstrate learning, such as fostering, student agency through voice and choice. These are all things that come out because we're challenging what we've been doing, thinking through it, considering innovations, and then eventually reimagining what schools could be or should be. We've created a Kruger theme-based classrooms where ping pong tables become workspaces, where glass walls are used for brainstorming exercises, and slides that allow you to access different floors in the school building. Amazon Echo is our public announcement tool, and students generate a list of the electives that they want to take. So it's just to sort of engage us in thinking about disruptive moment or moments where we require the reorganization of a company, of a school community, and it allows them to consistently and should frequently come together and engage, discuss, debate, and collaborate to build a new vision or a vision of what the community would like to do among the existence of a multitude of possibilities. So I think it's in these ongoing conversations, like the conversations we're about to have in these breakout sessions, where these paths are defined and clarified, and we realize that disruption, innovation, and imagination are not radical events, but really rather a product of our active and ongoing engagement, reflection, and really are a product of a dynamic collective process of human interaction. So that's the sort of the idea behind kind of getting us to think about those three things. We hear those words quite often, but what do they really mean, and how do they look like when we're working with them, and how do they motivate us, engage us, and push us to really reimagine what schools could and should be?
Thank you, Andrew. You deliver with such determination that it really drives this point of our human interconnectivity at the heart of our schooling ecosystems that can inspire us to reach more, to transform, to change. I love schools as incubators of ideas and accelerators of dreams, right? What a wonderful message for our children, for our students, how inspiring. Okay, well, moving on to our next guest. Super happy to introduce Miss Jill Akers Clayton. We're so happy to have you with us, Jill, returning to our forum. It's great. We're up for a treat here, learning about how to create healthy spaces, how spaces matter in fostering well-being. Jill is the educational director for VS America. Jill designs learning environments and school buildings around the world. Can't wait to hear about all that, Jill. She's a project-based learning expert. She's also an author and specializes in whole school project-based learning implementation. And Jill is also collaborating with our co-authors, Capono Ciati and Miss Jennifer D. Klein at Principled Learning. So we're super excited to have the triad, all three of you together in one forum. And we welcome Jill today. Thank you, Jill, for joining us from Coachella in Colorado, US.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. It's always hard to follow acts like we've just had this morning. And I think that the beautiful thing is when we all come together, we're starting to think through school in a new way, systematically delivering elegant solutions that really hit, as Naomi said, at the heart of learning. And I'm fortunate enough to get to work for VS America, which is a German furniture company. I work there with Andrew Lowe's, who's also joining us today. He lives in Costa Rica. And so we work together to really start to reimagine what the learning environment looks like. And my work really is centered on how do we bring the learning environment into alignment with a school's vision and their educational programming. And so looking at capital campaigns, our development work, master planning processes, and really starting to reimagine the physical environment as the catalyst for how teachers shift their daily habits into truly student-centered environments. And so flexibility in furnishings, natural light, circadian rhythms, using the all too underutilized commons area within newly designed buildings as primary learning environments versus what we typically label them as breakout spaces. And so working with school leaders to really create the dynamics that are needed and to set the stage for teachers to be able to innovate and really looking at, yes, how do we install new initiatives and new buildings and provide flexible furnishings? But after the installation of ideas and physical spaces, how do we create sustainable implementation over time? So teachers shift from, in the beginning, I have a flexible space, but then I go back to my students learning in rows or direct instruction. So how do I take, as a school leader, my vision for learning and really giving students the courage and the curiosity and the bravery within their space to do the kinds of student-centered learning in an agentic way? That takes a lot of collaborative clarity around a vision. And so how do we as school leaders make sure that we've set the stage for teachers to really do that, to really shift their daily habits and the ways in which they understand how students gather to be successful? And that really impacts our learning ecosystems and understanding for what school could be and how to really set the stage for practice around identifying the problems that matter for each teacher and to get them to truly create in multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, authentic challenges for kids. And as a school leader, for us, that cascading the message and making sure that teachers really honor what they need to innovate. So we're truly changing their habits on a daily basis. And we know as a school leader, that's really challenging because when we design schools where the door still closes, it's really easy for me to fall back into the patterns that I know really well. And so how do we really truly crack open the spaces of our physical environment and use them as the catalyst for innovation and that disruption that Andrew really talked about in his work that Capono links back to? This is really about understanding how we move through what our modern version of school could be for all of its learners, because that goes back to that human connection that we're really trying to foster and really elevate. And so I'm honored to get to work with architects and designers and reimagine the learning environment as a catalyst while getting to work with teams of teachers for 3 and 4 years at a time, because we do know that change, the needs and conditions for change really change over time themselves. And how do we keep the momentum for that? And so I'm honored to be here today and get to share alongside so many wonderful school leaders and innovators and disruptors, and get to see you now in a breakout room too. I love this stuff. It's so exciting. I love seeing everybody in this room.
And you can tell so much. I'm here busy watching everyone's reactions, and wow, everyone's really, tuning in, that connective piece that everyone keeps mentioning, our human interconnectivity. Thank you, Jill, for reminding us that it's up to us to set the stage, for all these different ideas towards transformation. Thank you for reminding us that there are the protagonists that play key roles, that this is for all our learners, for all our teachers, and of course, all of our schools. So we're super excited to join you later in your breakout room, dear Jill. And well, last but not least, of course, we're going to introduce someone very, very special who's a head teacher here in Mexico City at the Lancaster School that is part of the LAHC, the Latin American Heads Conference network. We're very, very close with them, with Alan Downey, who's maybe in the audience today. I haven't checked, but he promised he'd pop in to say hello to you, dear Charlotte, joining us today to talk about staff well-being through professional development and teacher efficacy. Charlotte has been an educator for over 20 years, and guess what? 18 of them here with us in Mexico City. So we're super happy to have the Lancaster School join. Of course, Charlotte's been an English teacher for many, many years, also an IB coordinator and teacher trainer, but she has, of course, her true passion for inclusive and infinite education. I love how you say this. She's presently completing a dissertation too, in a master's in educational management and leadership. So as well as her belief that all students are capable of great things throughout her career, she has been recognized for her commitment to continuing professional development. And so with that, we'd like to bring her on board to talk about staff well-being and teacher efficacy. Thank you so much for being here today, dear Charlotte.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm also really excited. I'm really pleased to hear all the things. I'm kind of wishing that I wasn't going to do a breakout room so that I could go and have a look at some of the other breakout rooms, but it's you know, my focus is very much on the teacher side of things and on how we support our staff so that all those other elements come together. You know, at the Lancaster, we consider ourselves to be a very inclusive school, and we have a very diverse community, and you know, we openly talk a lot about being a community of learners, and that includes our staff. And I think that that's a really important element. And I think when we talk about well-being, you know, we're really focused on student well-being, and we know that staff well-being is going to contribute to that. And you know, and there's been a lot of focus recently on staff well-being, and that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to talk about it, because I think, you know, it's a topic that is very important at the moment, and it seems to be becoming more important as we come out of the pandemic and people realize that, you know, certain things have changed and there are lots of shifts. And I think we all know, you know, we're in the midst of a recruitment crisis, a retention crisis. And I think that if we're able to develop our teachers and to make sure that our teachers are healthy and happy, then they're more likely to stay in the profession, which means they're more likely to stay in our schools. And that's got to be a win-win situation for everybody. Collective efficacy is also something that, you know, John Hattie mentioned it in his last revision of visible learning as like the #1 thing that's going to affect student achievement. It's got a much higher effectiveness, you know, rate than any of the other things that he identifies. So we know that we know that collective efficacy has an effect on students. There's also a very clear link between efficacy and well-being for students and for teachers. And yet there's not a lot of information out there. There's not a lot of research yet that really combines all of those elements. But Hattie says, you know, it should be a focus. It should be a focus for all educators and all policymakers, and because it has such a huge effect on student learning. And I think that it's also something that has a huge effect on the way that our schools operate, because I think a lot of the focus of when we talk about staff well-being, and in the research at the moment, a lot of the focus is on, for want of a better way of putting it, on surviving, right? On like, how can we make stress a little bit less? How can we prevent burnout? And there's not as much focus, I think, on those positive elements, on actually enhancing staff well-being. How can we make our teachers happier? How can we keep our teachers more positive? How do we motivate our teachers to be well, rather than just how can we adjust their workload, or how can we you know, help them to be more resilient to stress? Not that that's not important, but I think that we also have to have that balance of really improving what they're able to do. And as sorry, as you heard in the introduction there, my focus has always been on staff development and on teacher training. And so I think that that's an element that really needs to be included when we think about staff training. It is a huge element now in most initial teacher training in the UK. They all have a well-being element. But I'm thinking more as a head teacher, as somebody who works in schools, and I'm still involved in teacher training. I think it's also about changing the way we approach professional development, right? Providing opportunities, like deliberately providing opportunities for staff to collaborate, deliberately providing spaces where they're given autonomy and where we can respect and celebrate like teachers' professionalism. It can only be a positive thing. It can only make our staff happier. And that we know that autonomy and control over our own environment, if we think about the research, the social cognitive research of Bandura, we know that those are things that are going to make, they contribute to individual efficacy. And if we are able to create those collaborative spaces, then we're going to be able to develop more collective efficacy. And I do think it's interesting, like as part of the research that I've been doing, I do think it's interesting when you look at the connections between efficacy and well-being. And it's something that, for me, it's a bit of a chicken egg situation. It's very clear that the things that, the elements that we consider essential for well-being, when we talk about things like flow and resilience and all those lovely key buzzwords that float around, all of those things contribute to efficacy. But when you now look at the research on well-being, almost all of that research says that efficacy is a contributor to well-being. So we know that these two things are intricately linked, but it hasn't really become clear how that is. And I think for me, that's where the link comes in, is professional development. I think we need to look at, obviously collaboration is really important. And I think, here in Mexico, the local education authority, the Sept, they're introducing a new curriculum that is leaning very much towards the more international curriculum. So there is a huge element of interdisciplinary curriculum. There's a huge element of collaborative planning that's going to be involved in that. And those spaces are traditionally very difficult to find. We need time, we need space, we need commitment, and we need to do all of that on top of the things that we already know need to get done. All those administrative things make it difficult for us sometimes. So I think it is important that we have those conversations. And I think if we have a breakout room, it would be interesting to talk about things like professional learning communities, lesson study cycles, and those kinds of things. But it's also important to talk about how we fit those in and how we help staff to be able to really commit to their own development and their own time, so that they then have that energy and that enthusiasm to take it back into the classroom and to do all those things that we know encourage our students and that we know are going to make our students better learners. And I think that, that for me, that's really interesting, that intersection between how we as staff are learners and how we develop ourselves and how we then can take that into the classroom. Because we do talk a lot about collaboration in the classroom. We do talk about project-based learning. We do talk about, finding ways to give voice to students. And yet, I do think, in spite of lots of movement in the last few years, there is still a tendency in professional development for that to be, okay, we're going to sit in a room for a couple of hours, we're going to hear something, we might do some group work, and then we're going to go away. And some of you will do something with that, and some of you will forget about what we've just talked about. And there isn't that kind of follow-up and the link that we would expect to see with our students. Like, our staff aren't getting that same attention. And I think that, for me, is the point of interest as far as efficacy and staff development go. And if it helps to create that positive cycle of, collective efficacy makes student achievement feeds into staff efficacy, and so on, then that's got to be great for everybody. And that's why I think that's an important topic for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlotte. That is an amazing topic, super important and high priority as we've kicked off the beginning of the school year. That's the intention of creating the space so that we can take a pause, breathe, and reflect on what just happened in the past month as we initiated and, looking forward and what's to come. Thank you for reminding us about creating a positive cycle as we take care of ourselves, of our staffs, and look at them as learners themselves and developing themselves and reaching their full potential, so does that have an impact on our students, right, on their achievements. So it's that positive efficacy cycle. And oh, look who's here, lo and behold, Alan Downey, he's joining. Let me just let him in before we do the breakout session. So that was a great follow-up and addition to the panel topics. Charlotte, what would we do if we didn't take care of our staff and ourselves first, right? So thank you, it's an integral piece. And welcome, Alan Downey. I see that you've joined, we're super happy to have you. We've just finished with the 5 leaders and their introduction of their topics. The second part of our forum today is about getting more close and more personally into the different themes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our main session. I think we all did excellent. I can't speak for others, but I can't imagine it having gone any differently with the incredible smashing and powerful the voices that are just so aligned with everyone's thinking and proposal and in the transformation of education, or our commitment towards that anyway. Groundbreaking work that we've heard this morning that's being carried out in all different parts of the world. We're super privileged, I think, to belong to a community of people that come together. We're firm believers of the acronym team, that together everyone achieves more, and we do so by capitalizing on each other's strengths. It has always been what drives this forum. We are super proud that it keeps on going, and it keeps on going. Thanks to all of you. We've heard so much this morning about our different ecosystems, about disruption, innovation, efficacy, cognitive and emotional functions, our heart signals, our brain responses, the catalysts for change, the challenges, and about setting the stage. So I want to bring it back to that point, how we as leaders, and it's up to us to, with our courage, with our curiosity, with our bravery, and specifically our diversity, which is our strength. I've always believed in that. And to help us, as Jill said, crack open doors and make changes that are sustainable. We too are setting the stage, because this forum leads into our next forum in March 1, when we come together to celebrate. At the core of our beliefs is educational excellence, and how we can sustain that and make it sustainable throughout time, and how it's something that should honor every student, every teacher, every family, every school leader. So at the heart of that is whole schools and the work we're doing. We're super happy to host many of you. You're all welcome. It'll be in presence this time, our annual forum, March 1, in the beginning of the spring, to continue to talk about the drivers that are transforming education through your voices, that are relentless, that are fair, that are just, and that are, real experts and have the vision of how we move forward together. So with those words, I want to open mic now. We have 7 minutes just for a closing remark from each of our leaders. I'm going to invite you to do that as we say farewell until we meet again. And of course, Gabriella has done a superb job in providing that Mentimeter, that platform where all your reflections will be kept and shared. We have people in the production team today that are with us to create specific insights and bubbles about each of your participations that we're going to give back to you and share with all the leaders and share with the bigger network out there. So with that said,
Andrea, before they begin, just to remind everyone to share their comments before they leave. And yes, please go ahead with the final comments.
Thank you. Let's start in order then. We can go back to Capono for closing remarks, and then we'll follow in the same order that we began our intros earlier today. So go ahead. If anyone has comments throughout, just use the chat bar on the side. We will filter them as we are coming to a close to be able to give them to the leaders as they're speaking. So Capono, welcome. Closing remarks and reflections. Thank you.
Okay, I'll keep this super short because we have less than a minute if we do 1 minute each. I'll give you my closing thoughts, and then I'll give you a closing thought that comes from the group. So my closing thought is that I am even more appreciative of both the depth of time that I personally and my family has spent in education. I take a lot of strength in the grounding that I have in education, but I'm also equally as appreciative these days of being around and absorbing from other people who have not only spent time in education. And I'm learning so much from people who have expertise in other industries. And then I will elevate a thought from the group that oftentimes we think about these types of initiatives as dichotomies, this or that, and how might we look at a both and in cases where that's appropriate.
Amazing, super inspiring, well-rounded. Thank you for including the people in your breakout room and being their voice. Thanks, Capono, Chapo. Moving right along so we don't take up too many extra minutes. Next in line, I believe, was our
Mimi.
dear Mimi. Mimi, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. No, thank you. I just want to share that I believe, well, first of all, it's a pleasure to have shared with all of you. The conversations have been amazing and inspiring. And I truly believe that together we can actually raise the best generation that humankind has ever seen, that we can really, really work for better humanity. And if we start also starting from the heart, you know, which is really, really important. And the voice from our group is that it is not hard. And it's not conflicted with time. It's not conflicted with anything else. That it is easy to do that grounding, to do that focus, and take that moment to start working from the heart. And that way we can really dream of a world where every child has a prosperous, a sustainable, a happy and healthy life. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mimi, for that note of happiness and bringing the child right back to the center of what we believe in, that treasured idea that we hold so dearly in matters of the heart, of course. And next we go with our
Andrew.
leader, Andrew.
Yeah, great. Thank you. The only regret I really have from this experience is I didn't get to sit through all of the breakout sessions, but it was really wonderful to hear the introductions. I think it's great to understand that we're part of a group of people that have, you know, common goals, common interests, and they are centered on the students, and they are coming from our heart and our passion to look out and be advocates for students. And I think that's a key element. I mentioned, and we came out in our breakout session, is something I always tell our leadership team at the school is if it's worth doing, have the patience to do it well. And so even if you're just making a start or it feels like just minor steps or basic efforts, it's getting you moving in the right direction, and you'll break through the inertia and you'll get where you need to go as long as you have the patience and the willingness and the energy and the resilience to get your school and your community there. So thank you everyone for participating on a Saturday morning. It's been great to get to see and get to meet new people. And I appreciate Whole Schools for providing us the forum to do this.
Oh, Andrew, it's our absolute pleasure and honor to have hosted you. And wow, you leave us with that little seed of never forgetting our shared humanity. It's what got us here in the first place, and it's what will make us, excel and go forward and capitalize on all those strengths. Thank you for that quote. If it's worth doing, have the patience to do it well. Keep on going, right? Thank you, Andrew. Let's move right along to Jill now. Jill Akers Clayton.
So I love learning alongside everyone. You can ask most of my friends and folks who know me is that I try and learn something new all the time. So I'm always in the learner's seat alongside with my peers and growing. And I learned from Dr. Dieter Breidecker that sitting is the new smoking. And so how do we truly use our learning environment as a catalyst for well-being? Sitting is the new smoking. So thank you for joining me. I'm going to hand it off because I know we have another minute left and I want to make sure we hear from Charlotte as well.
I thank you so much, Jill. Thank you for reminding us of that very important idea that we hold on to, that we're all life lifelong learners, and we're all in this together. How not to expect that from our students if we're reflecting it, and from our teachers, of course. And with teachers in mind, we end with Miss Charlotte Crossland, Teacher Efficacy and Wellbeing.
Much. I think I really love that phrase, sitting is the new smoking. I'm going to think about that. But I think, I'm hearing from all the groups as well. I think, we all know that happiness and well-being are constructive when we collaborate, and this is what these kinds of events also give us the opportunity to do. A bit of networking, collaborating, listening to other people and their ideas. And I think, everybody seems to know that the message kind of distills into relationships continue to be the key to success in all the different areas. And only by constructing those relationships and maintaining those relationships and nurturing those relationships are we going to be able to offer both our staff and our students the experiences that they deserve. And thank you very much to everybody here. I also really enjoyed listening to everybody this morning. Have a great Saturday.
Charlotte. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for helping us to end on time. It's actually 12:00, so we're very proud not to, step over anybody's time. I'd like to just end by giving an overall round of applause to everyone here. You've been super amazing. And thank you for generating the highest expectations in each of us. You have led us through a beautiful session this morning, and we're all taking away the keys to success. Now let's put them to good use, and let's follow through, and let's keep constructing, nurturing, and maintaining and sustaining. We will be in touch very, very soon. Dear all, have a wonderful weekend. All the best to all of you.